Record. Got it, mate.
What is what is going on, everyone? My name is Joseph Reynolds, and today joining me is Mr. Stafford Swainston, Mr. Swaino Skills himself, ahead of the APFC card. We're going to be giving you a little preview of what's been announced so far on the amateur and pro card. How you doing today, buddy?
Good, mate. I'm very looking forward to this and getting into the nitty gritty of the card. So it should be a good one.
That's the one. I'll jump straight into it. Then the first fight at the moment looks as though one of your teammates, Mr. Dane Bolton, will be opening the card against Nils Guaitam. Obviously, he had a striking background, I believe, in Muay Thai. And then Dane had the boxing background as well. But in terms of opening up a card, it's the first time they're coming over to this country as well. How do you feel maybe both these guys will be feeling going into it?
I guess they're both quite early in the stages of the career, so I guess they both have the nerves before, especially when it's going to be Pettis' show. But I feel like they can both learn a lot from being on a bigger show like this and take a lot away from it, what it will be like in the pro ranks for when they do get there.
Yeah, and as well, you sort of look at the fight. You put in Manchester top team and then Calbon as well, two top gyms as well in the country, and then both sort of have that striking background in them. Do you feel as though knowing Dane or even maybe Nils, if you've seen him before, that they could go to the ground, or do you see this fight they're both going to look to keep it on the feet?
Yeah, since they're both strikers, that's definitely their bread and butter. But since they only been known for striking, they're obviously going to be working their grappling in the background. So I think they'll both will be wanting to get to a stage where they're comfortable in going both the ground and the striking. So I believe in the backstage of things, they've both been working on that silently and working on to that to bring their game up as a whole. So don't get me wrong. I think this might be a fight where it might be a big one on the ground just because they both were thinking similar things about their striking capabilities.
100%. And then we'll move on into the next one. Obviously, again, another person that you'll train with before in Declan Fisher. Obviously, a lot of people know about the wrestling background that he's got. And then Lewis Byrne, obviously, very well rounded martial arts. He's going to be 17 times now as an amateur as well. So,
It's a
sort of
lot
looking
at
into
the
this
time.
fight, 100%. And both of them have sort of got that grappling background as well. But in terms of looking at this fight, it's one of those ones that will be very high level for an amateur fight. And to have it the second fight on the card as well, if that is going to be the running order, that'll be a big fight, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know Lewis personally, but I know Declan. Declan will try and push the pace from the get go. Southpaw, he'll obviously come in for his heavy wrestling. That is his style. So with Declan's mentality within the fight, it's definitely going to be more of a wrestling style fight. Because of that, I believe Lewis will be probably at the start maybe looking to avoid that due to his gas tank being a lot fresher near at the end of the fight. Maybe Lewis, as you said, he's a mixed martial artist, so he'll probably try and mix it up at the same time. But I guess we'll see with that one. But I know where Declan's game plan will most likely be, and people normally go to the strengths in fights. So I believe he'll be going grappling heavy on that one.
100%. And as well, you take a look at that fight, obviously, in terms of the activity and who's been fighting the most recently, it'll be in Lewis Burns' favour. He'll have been competing sort of more regularly as Declan Fisher may have. So do you feel as though that can play in his favour a little bit, or do you feel as though sort of once you are back in the cage, it
Definitely.
doesn't take too long to readjust?
Definitely, it does help when you're a lot more of an active fighter. It helps with the nerves. It helps with the composure. It helps with everything. I feel like when I'm an active fighter personally, I feel a lot better going into fights. So that could have a big sway of things. Being even able to be calm in uncalm situations, of how you like to put it. This will make you be able to see openings a lot better. So the experience and the recent activity of Lewis may probably give him the upper hand for Declan on that sort of things. Because Declan, if he's been out for quite a bit, that'll contribute towards his nerves and maybe a little bit of a slower start if you're not used to being in the cage and in that sort of environment like you once were.
Yeah, and as well, then moving on into sort of the next fight, obviously, Lewis Slaver, I believe he's still only 17, already 4-0 as an amateur, taking on, I believe, as well the current Battle Arena champion in Ibrahim Basif as well. In terms of looking at this fight, again, Lewis Slaver, you know what he's going to go in there to do. He's looking to grapple, he's looking to heavy ground and pound as well. But in terms of being 17 and on a card like this, if you was in that sort of similar position, how do you think you would sort of be feeling going into a fight like that?
17 and 4-0. That is a good record to have. I remember when my first MMA fight would have been 17 myself. But that is a very very good one to start. He's started off early, and it is such a big card for such a young lad. Being midway up in the AMI card, definitely it's one for him for the memory books, one for him to help with his confidence levels, one for him just to embrace the experience. I think quite a lot in some amateurs, people don't embrace the experiences of having fights. They just go in, they think about how the 9 minutes, how long it is, but really, when you look in hindsight or in past the fight, that 9 minutes, once it's over and done, it's not long. At the time, it feels long as hell. It feels the longest 9 minutes of your life. But when you've finished and it's all said and done, you look back and you're thinking, "Whoa, why was I nervous about this? Why was I stressing?" You just got to enjoy the moment, be present there, and then, yeah, I think mainly just enjoy it. Sometimes in amateur fights, you're going with all the pressure on your back, but there's no pressure. You're there to learn. You're there to improve, and that's the sole focus. Wins, losses. Yes, everyone wants to win, but that's the topping on the cake. As long as you get a good fight, learn some things from the fight. That's a bonus. Winning, that's the cherry on the cake.
100%. And as well, in terms of sort of looking at his opponent, I believe he does have an amateur title as well. So he'll be coming into this, obviously, no title on the line for him. He may be feeling less pressure going into this, depending on how he's sort of viewing the show as well. But obviously, in terms of him going in this fight, he knows that Lewis Leva will have a lot of his teammates there that are competing on the card as well. His corner team, they'll always bring a big squad over to aspire as well. So do you feel as though going into this fight that a lot of the crowd may be against him in that sense, or do you feel as though how would he sort of approach this fight, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you'll go into crowds, and I'd say the crowd isn't in your favor. That is the kind of what fighting is. Sometimes you'll go into territory that isn't yours, and you won't have a single fan. But that is what fighting is. The real. Probably hear it when you come out, but once you're in the cage, you don't. Try and stay vision focused, so that doesn't really take too much into consideration on my part. I don't mind fighting away fighters or being in a away situation. That's where I believe I can shine even more. But when you do have the back of your own fans, yes, it definitely helps on the walkout. It gets you in the right mind frame. It gets you buzzing and all that. But don't underestimate someone when they're in the away ends. I believe if you come in with the right mindset, that is just as powerful as having loads of fans as well.
100%. And then even talking about crowds there, obviously, the first of the Irish fight, well, the second of the Irish fighters, sorry, to be coming over in Shane and Coakley. Obviously, had a fight with Charlie Lynch Spence that was very high level, had that
Yeah.
striking background and being at Dublin Combat Academy as well, taking on Minley at Tetnayan as well, who's got the similar experience, 6 fights versus 7 fights. I feel as though it could be one of those that stays on the feet, but speaking to Shannon recently, he wants to go into these fights. He wants to dominate each one. And when you are coming off of a loss going into the next one and having as well, I believe he's got 2 fights booked at once at the moment as well. What do you feel will be going through his mind at the moment, looking to bounce back from his last fight?
His last fight was Charlie, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fight was a high level fight. I reckon he probably took some things away from that confidence wise as well, because Charlie is a very high level opponent. He is very respected within the amateur rank. So I believe he won't be coming away downhearted from that loss. I think he'll be coming away high hearted because it was a close matchup. So for me, I've had it before. I've like once it's close like that, I've taken away positives more than negatives. Really, I've taken away learning lessons, obviously, but I don't come away with a negative mindset from the next fight. I come just more raring to go, and the confidence is there because I know what I'm capable of. So I think that'll be a similar thing for Coakley.
Yeah. And as well, he's sort of it's a different sort of thing to Pacific maybe coming over and the fans may be in his opponent's favour. But this time he's coming over to England where a lot of this is going to be in a hotel. His sole focus when he's there is going to be on the fight. There'll be no sort of living his normal day-to-day routine. It will be based upon that fight. And do you feel as though that's sort of what that fight week will be for him? All of his attention will be able to be focused on the fight, having to leave his home and sort of be in England for it.
Yeah, I guess how it should be really for everyone. Like if you're wanting to make this your career, you've got to focus on the fight when it comes to fight week. If you just want to do it for a little bit of hobby and say you've been in there, yes, do it how you want. But if your sole focus is yes, I want to get in the UFC, I want to get in Bellator, I want to get in one championship, you got to focus around that fight week because yes, you can perform in the gym, you could beat people in the gym, but if you don't beat people on fight night, none of it matters. None of it will matter. People look at your fights. People do not look at the fights you've had in the gym. Because there is sparring in the gym, but sometimes people make it into fights in the gym. So you've got to perform on that day. And if you're not feeling the best on the week coming up to the fight, no one cares. The only thing people care about is if you've won or if you've lost. And that's what people like. If you look after this fight goes maybe 3 years back, imagine it was pro. People aren't going to ask, "Oh, how did you feel that fight week?" They're just going to see if you've won or you've lost. So you need to put sole focus into this. Make sure your energy goes into the week. Yes, being away from home sometimes can help that because you've got the distractions there. If you've got family, your family's not there mithering you. Same with your friends about tickets. You're there in a hotel. You've got your schedule, what you need to do. And you just do it to a T, and then you've got a few gaps in between. But sometimes that can help focus. This is where being an away fighter sometimes can take a little bit of pressure off you because you're away and you can totally focus. You don't have any pressure of anything to do with the tickets or anything like that.
100%. And then as well, sort of moving into the next fight, I think both these guys, people will have heard the names before if they've watched sort of regional MMAs. Shawan Chowdhury versus Alex Holm. Obviously, the experience sort of, well, even then, Alex Holm's been competing for a long time as well. In this class of amateur fights, it doesn't have as many as Shawan, but going into this, it's a big flyweight fight as well. Both these guys have been sort of been named at the top before. So going into this one, how do you think they'll both be feeling?
Which gym is it that is it Shawan that trains at?
Yeah, yeah.
Which
Um,
gym?
Ace MMA, I do believe,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Shah
that's the one.
Chan,
Yeah, I
yeah,
thought it
yeah,
was. Definitely, I believe Alex will definitely be working on his grappling in the background. I know his game plan will be more striking. What I'm believing, obviously, could change in there, but from an outside perspective, I believe his game plan will be that. Shawan's obviously got more experience than him. Is he for Connor as well? Walsh. Is that
yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah,
He
yeah.
fought
So he's
Conor
got
Walsh.
experience with the top level. So to be fair, this will be a good test for Alex to see where he's at and see how he hangs with the top fighters in the country. Really.
Yeah, and as well, sort of before the APFC card, Alex Holmes obviously on UKFC taking on Will Perrin as well. So he sort of gets that fight where he'll be able to get that additional game time. And then again, it's similar to what we saw in terms of
Oh, he's
Declan
got another
Fisher and
fight
Luke.
booked already, yeah. Or
Yeah, yeah,
before, yeah.
he's got another fight booked as well already. So do you feel as though again when you are having that fight beforehand? Do you feel as though potentially going back to back camps could be an issue for him, or do you feel as though it could be the complete opposite, where it'll be a good thing for him to get a fight, get another win potentially, and then move into this one as well?
Having back-to-back fights booked like this, it all is dependent, really. Depending on the fight beforehand, depending how the training's been, depending if he's got injured in that last fight, if he's taken any knocks. Even sometimes you could come out of a fight and have a little bit of a confidence drop, which could lead to bad performance in the next fight because you're trying to rush it in. But it can have the opposite effect. You can have the buzz, you can have the confidence, and it can just make you drive on for the next one. So it can swing both ways, really. So some people might see it as a good thing. Some people may see it as a bad thing. You only really know once the first fight has happened, really, until you can kind of assess what's happened in that fight, take some learning things, see how injured you are, and then go for the next one.
100%. And then even going into the next fight as well, Luke Burns versus Yannick Gaitam. I believe Luke Burns is booked for the FCC flyweight title and then goes
Yeah.
into this fight as well. So it's a similar sort of story. But both these guys, they're probably going to want to keep it on the feet. Luke Burns obviously got some very good unorthodox submissions. He'll throw flying triangles if the opportunity arises. But when it is that sort of more kickboxer versus Muay Thai sort of style in an MMA fight, where does that fight normally start to lead out?
Say it could all tell. It could be more on the gas tank. It can be on the styles of fighting. So obviously a kickboxer will probably throw more punches, a Muay Thai guy will probably throw more kicks. So it depends how they can counter from each punch. So Yannick's the Muay Thai guy, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah.
So if he'll be throwing more kicks, it'd be more for Luke Burns to counter off to throw his boxing, which then could potentially lead into takedowns, and then vice versa. Luke's going to be trying. If Luke's trying to punch and come in, Yannick needs to keep the distance a little bit more to throw his kicks from there. If he allows Luke to get into boxing range, this is where the kicks will be hard because kicks is a longer technique or a bigger range to throw. So look, it'll be a game of controlling the distance and seeing which strikes will be available at each given time. But like you said, Luke Burns has got another one booked as well, and I think really that's how it should be in amateur. They should be trying to get the as much experience as they possibly can because when it's all said and done and you've gone pro, no one gives a crap about your amateur record. All they care about is your pro. Your amateur is the time to learn and do everything. I had 10 amateur fights, me personally, but looking back, I'm like, I should have had more at the time. I should have just busted them out week, because all it is experience. I think Teddy Stringer, he's had a load. He had like 20 something. Mohammed,
Yeah.
he obviously had a lot in IMAFs, but if the opportunities arise to be having one every other week or something and you're not injured, I'd take it as an amateur because it's all experience. When you're pro, it's a little bit of a different story. I won't be taking fights week after week after week because it's going to probably affect your performance a lot. But in amateur, you're going to be the whole point of amateur, find different styles. Like I might be really good at defending takedowns, but I might be really crap at trying to get my own takedowns. And yes, it can show in the gym, but you'll properly see in the fight. Maybe I'm crap at doing some submission defense. If you got submitted in pro and you got submitted in amateur, it's definitely going to hurt a lot more in the pro league. So amateur is a time to learn and see what you need to work on to get you ready for the pro or the professional leagues.
No, 100%. And then even moving on to that, the second to last amateur fight that we do have at the moment, I feel as though this is putting sort of one of England's or the UK's one of their best at the moment in Conor Sean McKay versus Jake and Guy as well. Obviously, he's done a phenomenal job on the Irish scene. I believe he's been to the Europeans before or in the World Championships as well. Could be wrong. I haven't checked his record in some time, but putting sort of Ireland's number one versus one of UK's close to number one as well, or both close to number one in the countries as well. What do you feel as though they'll both be feeling going into this fight to really determine who is that guy at the moment in their division?
Bet they're both just thinking who's going to be the harder one, who's going to be the better fighter. Can I be better than him? Is Jake number one? You said in Ireland.
I believe so. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So yeah, if Conor beats Jake, then he's going to be like, I'm top dog out of all of them. He said he'd probably be saying I should be near top dog of UK or the UK and England as well. So it's one of them. It's going to be big when you beat someone that is higher ranked with you or similar ranked but near at the top. It does help your confidence levels a lot, and this will get you start ready to thinking a few more fights. Probably want to start going pro. Obviously, Conor's only had 4, so he's probably going to be looking for a bit more experience anyway after this fight. But Jake's after this fight, if he wins, he'd be 10-2. If he loses, he'd be 9-3. That's quite a few amateur fights there. So it's just seeing how you perform in there and how you feel. The main thing is how you feel. If you don't feel ready, do not go pro. And obviously, if it's the later end of the Yami card, this is where you're going to be looking at. These guys are going to be coming pro in the next year or so, whereas the people at the bottom of the card are definitely going to be looking for more experience.
Oh yeah, and as well when you do, and it's sort of a testament in terms of the UK and Irish scene at the moment as well. I feel like both this fight especially is one of those ones that if you did put it at pro, it wouldn't necessarily really look out of place at the start of a pro card as well. But do you feel as though it's much more common to see these really high level amateur fights that realistically at pro wouldn't even look that out of place?
Definitely, definitely. The thing is now with amateur MMA, there's a lot of people wanting to be in the UFC. A lot of people that want to make this their full-time career by earning actual money from it. Some people go full-time in when they're like 17, 18, but they probably got the help of the parents or a few sponsors. But it's not really your full thing until you're getting paid, I believe. You can call it your job, maybe delayed sort of payment. But the thing is, everyone is training full time now. If any amateurs, there's amateurs with like let's look at the bottom. Dane Bolton, yeah, he's 3-2. He's training like full time. Let's probably look at Declan. He's probably doing the same. Like most of these amateurs, after 1 or 2 fights, and then if they know they want to do it, they are training full time. So there's no difference between pro and amateur in how they maybe a little bit because they don't have the experience, but they're training like the pro. Whereas back in the day, it used to be like, yeah, amateur, you're fighting. I train 3 times a week, whatever. Some people are like, oh, he'll beat me because he's a pro, but because he's training twice a day every day. Whereas the difference now, pros might be training less than amateurs just because they've done the main building base of their fighting knowledge and their fighting skills. They just tip it when it comes to fighting, whereas amateurs need to evolve and learn all the time. So I think some amateurs will train more than pros. I knew this because when I went away in America, I was shocked at how much I trained compared to the professionals. But obviously they were better than me. But really what it is I took a mentality of thinking if I wanted to do this for a living, I've got to be training full time. Obviously it's their job where they're making money through, but they've done the years that I've done already. So when it comes to the later ends, they've just got to fine-tune it for each opponent when you're a bit more professional. Fine-tune it to each one, and that's how they'll get on top with the wins. But most amateurs, they are full-time, really, within the sport.
Yeah, and as well, so you mentioned there in terms of the full time. Obviously, I know from speaking to Connie, he moved from Wales and now lives in Aspire himself. He lives there, even studies there as well. So, do you feel as though that's almost putting a little bit of extra pressure on yourself when you leave your country in Wales and then move to England? Do you feel as though there's an added bit of self pressure there that you may not think about, or do you feel as though if that's what he wants to do, it's not something he'll even think about twice?
I'd say the only person that can put pressure on yourself is you. If you don't have that mentality towards things, let's take parents, for example. Parents might put pressure on you to go to school, get a proper job if it's recent within that. And if you lose and you feel the pressure of your parents beforehand, but you're like, oh, whatever. When you lose, you then may feel the pressure because they'll be telling you to go back to school or go back to do your job. So pressure can only be within someone from oneself. They have to bring the pressure to them, I believe. If you know you want to do this, you don't care what other people think in that sort of sense, and you don't really rise to what people are saying. I think, like, when you get in arguments of you should be doing this instead, and you'll get in an argument why you shouldn't. You're doing that because you feel a bit more pressure on it. Whereas really, if you had no pressure, you'd be just like, yeah, cool. You've got your opinion, I've got mine. I know what I want to do. I know what you want to do. So let's just leave it at that. So I feel maybe when it's recent, you have the pressure. Like, take me for example. I had the pressure. I had the pressure when I first quit school with my parents because they definitely didn't agree with what I was going to say or what I was doing at all, not one bit. But as years came along, I don't feel no pressure. Like if I lost now, I would not feel pressure about what decisions I made 5 years ago. Whereas like when I lost 2 weeks after I quit school, I felt the pressure to be like, oh, they're going to be saying this, this, and that. Obviously, I'm living under their roof at that given time, so it's a bit different. Same with living in the gym. This can go good ways, it can go bad ways. You got to think fighting. You exhaust mentally before you exhaust physically, and that is the bad thing I believe about living in the gym. I've lived in the gym before because I've needed to, and don't get me wrong, I grafted my ass off in there, and I reckon Connor is doing the same. But sometimes seeing the same four walls 24/7 of the day, even if you are loving to train, can get a little bit mentally draining. I can say what I find is better is training and getting out of the place I'm training in. Even if he's doing PT, he's doing it somewhere else where obviously that might not be the case. But for me personally, I find it's better mentally, as in my mental battery, to train where I'm training and go somewhere else where I want to do PTs or go somewhere else where I want to sleep. Don't get me wrong, I've lived in the gym for 12 months straight. But now, looking back when I've got a bit more facilities and opportunities where I can stay other places, I'll take that with both hands because it allows me to recharge my battery a lot more than keep letting it drain. So that's what I find for living in a gym. But when you're coming up for fights, don't get me wrong, there's no other option. There's no other option. You got to do it because you don't have the money for other things. So people that do live in the gym, I've got big respect for them because I know sometimes at the later weeks it can drain you a little bit. But that's what you're there for. That's what you signed up for, and you just got to grit in with the bad times to make the good times.
No, 100%. And then the final bout on the amateur card is Jack Dunleavy versus Kane Holmes. Obviously, I feel as though Kane may be looking at potentially a pro switch, whereas I believe Jack will be wanting to still collect more experience on the amateur scene. But when you are getting to that point where you feel as though potentially you're going to be wrapping up your amateur career, you're moving into those last few fights, do you feel as though there's a mentality shift in terms of when you're moving closer to that pro switch? Or how do you sort of feel as though that stays before?
I say when you're ready to go pro, it's more about finding you. You've got to find your style. In MMA, there is loads of different styles. But by the time you're ready to go pro, you should kind of really know how you're going to fight. Like, is it going to be more of a striking base? Is it going to be more of a strike to grapple to punt to ground and pound? Or is it going to be strike to grapple to jiu-jitsu? Like, you kind of want to know your style because then you can start implementing a lot more in training. And if you're focusing on that style, and using that style to stop other styles, that's going to make you even better as a fighter. But when you chop and change between, all right, I'm gonna grapple now, I'm gonna strike now, I'm gonna do this. or within your training, it makes you neglect certain things for a certain amount of time. And obviously, if you're neglecting something, you're not going to be quite as good. So let's say if you're a you're wanting to wrestle, but then you're grabbing them all the time and you're doing all the jiu-jitsu, but really, when you come to go pro, you start doing ground and pounds. It's going to be hard to land your ground and pound because you haven't been drilling it in your amateur fights. So your first few amateur fights, I think the first one, it's just getting in there, getting those nerves, getting them all out, feeling what it feels like to actually be in a fight. And then when you go for your next few, it's just finding. I went through different stages of finding different styles. So one fight I'd strike, one fight I'd strike to grapple to try and hold them. And then when you get into your later amateur career, you want to start finding what do you like doing, or what do you want to do, or what do you want the fans to see for you, because then you can use that into go pro. I think that's the main thing for amateur. Before you go pro, you should find what you are as a fighter. Don't get me wrong, you can change it when you go pro, but if you have a good base to start from with your style, you're going to have that better crowd for you when you go pro. Because I haven't said, but like many people say, marketing in fighting is key. If you do not market yourself or sales or post on socials or somehow be a little bit different from the crowd, that's going to help you sell tickets. That's going to help bring a crowd. That's going to help bring business. If you bring business, you get better fights. If you do the opposite and don't do anything, I'll be honest, I won't say no matter how good of a fighter you are, because some people watch fighters just because how good they are technically, but it's going to hinder your popularity tenfold.
100%. And then moving on into the pro card as well, it's on the UFC Fight Pass as well. Is this card, and I do believe taking a look. Some of these fighters, I'm not going to know who they are, so I may focus on just fighters that aren't traveling and coming over a little bit.
Yeah, sweet. I
But,
probably have the same cup, mate.
but I'll let you take a sip of the water.
Nice one, mate. Big boy
But
bottle. We don't do lit ones around here. 5 litre lid.
Gotta
Get the
get it
daily
in.
water in.
But
Yeah, go on, mate.
the first two fights that we've got is Levi Steeman and then Scott Johnson as well. Both of them are in a similar sort of position with the mixed records or neutral records. And when you first go pro, people now, especially with the way that pros are built up in the UK scene, especially, they're used to seeing the 2-0s, the 3-0 pros. They aren't really taking the tough fights. So on paper, people may look at them and start to question them a little bit. And do you feel as though that even if the pro career doesn't start how ideally you wanted to start, that you can even start to ask questions of yourself in that sense if it does not go how you'd expect it to at the start?
Yeah, I'd say definitely that's with everything. If something doesn't go your way for a few times in a row, you may start doubting yourself. But this is where you got to find out: do you want it? Do you want to fight? And does this want to be? Do you want this to be your career? If it doesn't, then yeah, knock it on the head. You can maybe have a few more if you want. But I think with fighting, if you don't want to fight, do not fight. It is a dangerous game to not really want to do it. And if you're 0-3, I think was Levi 0-3. If you're 0-3, like before,
2-3, I
she got the
believe.
2 wins.
2-3.
2-3 now, but did she get to 3 losses?
Yeah, I believe so. It may not be
Yeah.
fact. I'd have to have a look.
So yeah, like if she got, is it she or he? I'm sorry,
Sorry.
she. Well, it could be either. So if she got to 0-3, yeah, and she did not like fighting, to get to 3-3 back to a neutral record, that'd be very, very hard. Because if you don't want to fight, when it comes to training, you don't really want to be in the gym. You don't really want to do this. Whereas, because she's carried on, I can tell she wants to. She wants to be there. And when you want to be there, that's when you're dangerous. When you're happy, some people might say you're not, but I find when I'm happy and enjoying myself in my training, I'm going to be more dangerous in there because I love to train. So instead of staying an hour and a half in the gym, I might stay for 2.5 hours. But if I'm doing that every day, it's going to compound up. No, it doesn't have to be hard every day. Sometimes I could be doing just an hour technical, work on the things I need to work on. So when you see that of fighters, you can tell they want to be there because it's nothing's worse in fighting than losing. When it comes to, you can say, oh, this was worse, but if you've lost a fight and you expected all the time you're going to win, there's nothing worse than that. So if you rack up a few of them, a few losses, and you come back from that, that shows tenfolds about your personality, just that you'll never give up, and that's a lot of respect that I can have.
100%. And then as well, there's Emil Vujakovic, who hasn't got an opponent at the minute, but obviously,
Yeah.
I've seen him on FCC before. A very dangerous fighter. I believe Jamie Davis, who's currently an amateur going pro, someone may have been speaking to me about him wanting to have that fight
Yeah, I
coming up
believe
from.
the last fight he got a knee knockout, I believe,
Yeah,
to the head
I
at
believe so as
FTC.
well.
I was there for that
It was
one.
something big. It's regular fashion, I believe, now for Emil at this point.
Yeah, I believe he's been struggling to get opponents and getting injured in between like his pro debut. I believe. Don't hold me to that. So, yeah, obviously he hasn't got an opponent so far. So yeah, it's probably a tough one for people want to take. Obviously, he's a heavy hitter. 1-0. It's some people want to go with the safer fights, I'd say. So I believe they obviously will get an opponent for him, and I'll be looking forward to see who they match up and see how stylistically that one would work out. But until then, I just say it's probably a waiting game for him. He'll be grinding, he'll be training in the background, doing his thing, but it won't be specific to a certain opponent, which some people will start changing as you get up the pro career. That's kind of a very big thing to have, maybe game plans at the start of your pro career. When you think you might have dropouts and stuff, it might not be so much. But if you just concentrate on yourself and what you need to improve, you're just going to get better as a fighter. So I believe that's what he's going to be doing in the background.
No, 100%. And then even moving on, I know you'll have trained with this person before.
Oh,
Kept up
Mr.
with the Manchester
Carter.
top team reels, the Lasinha in the elbow pads with Callum Connor before,
Yeah.
taking on Jose Nuno. Can't say I've heard of him before. I feel as though it might be an opponent that's flying in for him. But
Nah, can't. Never heard of that. Nobody, mate. Don't want to be biased, but yes, Callum is a striker. Now we put level head on. Callum is a striker, but he is mixing it up with everything in the training. So he's working on his weakest elements as well to mix into being a mixed martial artist. Really, he's come from a Muay Thai background. Obviously, from that you can kind of gather what his main style is. He likes the clinch. He likes the elbows. He's been working on his wrestling in the background a lot to stop the defense. But not only that, he's been working on his attacking wrestling as well. And speaking to Mr. Connor, I believe he wants to maybe start mixing up a little bit. So that is one thing that when you've been heavy in one sport, that's one thing that mainly some people might not start to do. It might take them a few years of training to get the confidence to go from being a Muay Thai fighter to being in an MMA cage, to doing the wrestling and going for wrestling as well. So that'd be a good thing or good fight to watch. See how it plays out. Obviously, it can go so many different ways in the cage, but this is just predictions of how it goes. I believe Callum will strike, and I believe Jose will try and shoot. Even though I don't even know what he's like, but I believe that is how it will go. He just has to get past the knees and the elbows and get under those hips to get successful shots.
no, and then as well, sort of moving into the next fight, Jack Atseworthy is making his pro debut. Obviously, on the amateur scene, it seemed like with each of his fights, he kept going viral, knockout after knockout. And now making that pro debut, the momentum behind him will be huge. And then he's taken on Alex. I'm not going to
He's
try.
not even gonna try.
I'm not risking it.
Shall I
But
give it a go? Budio.
but Buddy Owie with nah, we're not
Yeah,
doing that. We're not doing that. But
yeah.
obviously pro debut, momentum's behind him, big card. Lot of his teammates are on this card as well, who he trains with closely. I'm sure going into this one, his confidence will be extremely high, I'd assume.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, he's probably been. Has he been number one for a little bit now in the amateur
Yeah,
scene?
he's been in and around that position for a while now.
Yeah, once you're number one for a while in the amateur scene at your weight class, there comes a time where you do have to come pro. So probably at the right stage for him. He's probably going to be raring to go, as most people are when they have their pro debut, and just literally wanting to make a bang. People, when you go amateur to pro, you know you've got to mentally, you kind of know you got to step it up a little bit. Even if you know you've been training as hard as you possibly have before, you know somehow you've got to get the upper edge on other people. So you're going to be thinking, how can I do something that someone else is not? If I'm doing the same thing as everyone else, I'm never going to get different results as everyone else. So I've got to be different. So I reckon they'll be probably thinking, Jack and everyone else that is any. Have we got any other pro debuts? No, but anyone else that does their pro debut, they'll be thinking, how can I be different to them? So how can I go the extra mile? How can I do something that they're not? Because if you're doing the same things, like I said, you're going to get the same results, and no one wants the same results as everyone else. So don't be a sheep. Do different things. That's just with everything, not even just fighting. Don't be a sheep. Do different things. Be different, because then, like Jack likes, I think, talking to his opponents in the cage. Is that correct?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
likes
And
to
what
do
was I saying earlier about marketing? That is a marketing thing. You might not think it at the time, but that gets people that don't fight. They're like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. And it gets people watching. Even if, like, was it Nate Diaz that said it? You might, if you watch it, or was it McGregor? One or the other. He just said, if you hate me or love me, if you're watching, you're still a fan. And that is everyone. When someone's a little bit different in the cage, if you're watching, and obviously not now as your pro debut, but as you get up the ladder, that's what's going to get you paid. So yeah, he's definitely. I definitely like watching people that are hot-headed in the cage. It's fun, and people that don't like fighting like watching that as well. Because most people that watch fighting, they watch it because it's violent. And when people are chatting a lot of crap in someone mid-fight, like Diaz does sometimes, and Masvidal does sometimes, they love it because it's just more violent.
100%. And then as well, moving into the next fight, they've spelled Malachi's name wrong as well. They've hit him with the two
Oh,
A's.
bloody hell,
So
Joey Bye. Come on, mate. They could have
it's going
started
to be
that one
he's
out.
Malachi will be looking to make a statement there to the whoever wrote the cards up. But obviously he's taken on Lucas Jala as well at the start
Yeah.
of his pro career. Last time I saw him, I believe, was on Battle Arena in Coventry. So far, hasn't faced the toughest opponents, I would say. Even as a pro, I would maybe edge Malachi's amateur opponents to the pro opponents. But I feel as though early on as a pro, that's something that's quite common to see in a sense. But 1-0 versus 2-1, Malachi
Yeah,
obviously
is it
always up
Lucas?
for
Is
it.
that how you say it? Lucas?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was 2-1. I believe he was 5-1 as an amateur.
Yeah,
Yep. I've done my research, Joey Boy. Don't you worry, mate.
yeah.
Got you covered. Malachi, is he 6-1 as an amateur? No, is he 6-0 as an
No, it was
amateur?
6-0, went undefeated. Yeah,
6-0, yeah. Well, I did that one as well, mate. Yeah, Malachi is a long-rangey opponent, a long-rangey guy. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory of how to beat, or not beat, but how you're going to get more successful with Malachi. He wants to keep the range because he's long. So if you're short or not as long as Malachi, you've got to close the range somehow. That could be from your fakes. That could be from your head movement, taking your nose off the center line. So that is stuff that Lucas is going to have to work on to get past Malachi's long limbs. Is he a wrestler, Lucas? I don't know that too much about him. If he's a wrestler, this is where you got to change the angles to then come in to get into your hips, get to the shots. If you're going straight forward at Malachi, he will ping you off the bat with his teeps or his up kicks, with his straights. That's what he's going to be going for because he's a long rangey opponent. So he'll be using that. He'll definitely obviously be working on his footwork as well, because that is what most people are trying to take you down. They'll be working on the footwork, so it's hard to get under and control your hips, because that's all it is. If he's trying to wrestle, he's got to control Malachi's hips. He's got to stay in line with his hips. Malachi's going to take his hips out of the line of Lucas' hips to make it hard for a shot. Because if I'm square to someone and I rotate slightly to the side and they're still looking in the same direction, they've got to move so their hips are in line with my hips until they can drive a takedown. Don't get me wrong, they can still drive a takedown from there, but it's not going to be half as powerful, meaning it's going to be so much easier to defend. So Malachi's probably going to be drilling on that, and Lucas has got to drill on moving his head a little bit, or if it's not moving your head, your fakes, your level changes to get in and close that distance a little bit more. So either you could get the wrestles or dirty boxing on the inside.
Yeah, and as well when you are fighting someone like Malachi, I mentioned there in terms of the teeps, he throws a lot of straight shots, the jab across, and then as well he throws those teeps as well. So it almost makes it harder to take him down when he's throwing those straight shots, and he knows how to use his range to keep someone from being
Yeah,
able to shoot on himself.
this is where
Do you
Malachi
think this?
knows people are going to take him down. This is with everyone. If anyone is trying to take you down, do not aim for the face as much. If you're not being successful with it and they keep getting under it, don't aim for the face. Aim for the throat. And once you've aimed for the throat, if that's not working, aim for the stomach, because the stomach don't move, or the solar plexus. So if someone keeps level changing, just hit them straight in the solar plexus, because when they level change, that will hit them in the gob. This is why hitting in the throat, if someone's slipping a lot, it's it's harder for it to miss, because your throat, if I slip, it'll hit my shoulder. If I hit my head and I slip, obviously it'll go through the gap. So this is where you start playing with the aim of your shots and going to the throat and the stomach, or solar plexus, depends on where you want to go, if they are a heavy wrestler, because then you are choosing your shot selection to stop the takedowns. This is that stops it before they even shoot because they don't want to come into those shots. As well as that, you either throw low kicks or head kicks. For Lucas, he'll be wanting to throw more head kicks if he can reach to get Malachi's hands up to protect himself, meaning the gap between his elbow and his hips is bigger. So then he can get in for the takedowns. Obviously, though, what I'm saying is I don't know his style, but that could be the same thing to get him for dirty boxing. So it's all shot selection, which can stop or create a takedown. So you got to be choosing wisely of the shots you're going to throw or create.
Yeah, 100%. And then as well, we sort of move into the last 4 fights of the card. I feel like a lot of these names that we're going to see, they're all at that point now where big promotions are going to be looking for them. Obviously, Lewis Lee Scott, we've already seen him with PFL Europe, Liam McCracken with Bellator, Hayder Khan, he's been on the cusp for a while. Lots of people talk about him. And then James Williams, now 4-1, finally going to get that fight with Danny Missing as well, who recently fought Kiru, seen Sahara as well. But when you are in these positions where you know you're on the cusp of being signed, I'm sure Liam will already know who's looking at him. Lewis Lee Scott may already know who's looking at him as well, because they will be watching these fighters closely now at this point. Do you feel as though when you know you're in that position, is it hard to not get carried away with that thought? And is the main focus just staying in that element of keeping it one fight at a time?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's about being present. So if you're always thinking about the future or the past, you're never living in the moment that you're at. And that's what you kind of got to do when you go in for a fight. If you're thinking about other things when you go into a fight, you're probably going to get hit a little bit more. Not even for this, it could be scouts. You're thinking about scouts, but even if you had, say, relationship troubles or whatever, you're thinking that in the middle of a fight, or you've been thinking that as you've been training. Your training is not going to be as good, meaning your fight's not going to be as successful because you've not been training like that. So sometimes it can go both ways, really. It can go to your head, or it can not go to your head. And if it goes to your head, that's the worst thing that can happen for a fighter. It's where fighters think they've made it before they've actually made it. Because when you get signed to the UFC, you haven't. Yeah, for me, I haven't made it when I got to the UFC. I haven't even got paid yet. You've just signed a contract saying you're going to be fighting on the UFC, and if you do crap on the next few fights, you're gone. So you don't make it when you get signed to a promotion. This is where, if it goes to your head, then you're screwed. But if it goes to your soul and you're ready to train and put your ass in and graft and like vision focus, that's when that's when it's going to be sweet. You're going to be in all good hands because you know you're going to put 100% in. This is the way it can go both ways for people. And it depends what sort of personality traits they have. But like Louis and Liam, they've experienced a little bit of the high level, and I'm pretty sure they wanted to get back to that sort of high level in fights. This is why Pettis is a great card. He's fought been a ex-UFC champion, all this, so it's going to give him the eyes because people are going to get on Fight Pass just because they know it's Pettis' show, and that's going to get him the eyes. Maybe there's no scouts directly here, but there'll be some people watching from, like you said, Bellator, PFL. You might even get someone on the UFC looking at potential ones because the UFC don't always look at your last fight. Obviously, they'll be looking at fights before so they can see on the come up who may be ready in a few fights' time because they're not. Well, they rarely sign lads that have had 5 fights. Don't get me wrong, they've signed people with less, but they want. I'm not saying it's a set in stone rule, if that makes sense, but you're looking at around that 10 ball figure for fights, really. But there's no set rules. So, like Louis, for example, he's 6-0. If he goes 7-0 from here, UFC might be looking at his next 2 fights, see how he performs. If he performs well, signed. So that's kind of how they might be looking. Might not even be UFC, might be Bellator, might be PFL. But once you get that touch for the bigger shows or the bigger things, especially the bigger money, you're going to want to get back there.
100%. And as well, it's not something we touched on too much, but you did then, obviously, it's on the UFC Fight Pass as well. You know, you look at guys like Jack Atseworthy, Callum Connor, Malachi Edwards, Emil Vujakovic, Scott Johnson. They've had no more than 2 or 3 fights for them so far during the pro careers, and to be already on the Fight Pass as well. Do you feel as though in their minds that'll be speaking sort of a testament to what they've been doing and that they deserve to be in this position? But to already have pros with early on records on the Fight Pass, do you feel as though this for them, they'll be treating it like the biggest opportunity they've had so far?
Like I said, it all depends with the person. I'd always say, yeah, it's a good opportunity, but I don't always say, oh, this is the biggest opportunity I have in my life, because then you're putting a pedestal on it. When you put a pedestal on stuff, that's when you'll get a bit more nervous. Maybe you'll get a bit of pressure on you. Like I said, I don't I'll have a bit. I like having a little bit of pressure on me, but not loads where I'm thinking, "Oh crap, I've got to do this. I have to perform all this sort of stuff." When you're just like, "Yeah, it's a good opportunity and all this," but you go in like not thinking it's the balls what or the balls knees and all that sort of stuff. I believe personally that's why I'll perform better. So I don't put a pedestal in anything saying, "Oh, that's so." I know where I'm at, and I know what where it ranks on other shows and stuff like that. But I'm not going to be like, wow, it's like go fanboy mode, because when you go fanboy mode, you get all nervous and all that. So this is where how many fighters have we got in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. So we've got 20 fighters on this UFC Fight Pass. Yeah, all of these. Don't get me wrong. All of these will want another sponsor. But if all of them fight exactly the same, this is where I'm getting back to. All these fighters fight exactly the same. Why would anyone sponsor them over the other person? Because the goal is on the come up for being a UFC fighter, being a champion, being a Bellator fighter, PFL, whatever it is to be able to afford to train full time and not have to have a part-time job along the way. How do you do that on the come up? Either you've got sponsors, or you've got an all right family that's supporting you through there, or that your family are quite wealthy. If you're doing PTs, it still takes away time from your training. So everyone's goal is to be able to just train and get money, not have to do anything else in between, because then they can focus solely on the recovery. So let's take two people, for example, yeah? We'll just go, I don't know, we'll go McCracken and Louis. Obviously, yeah, we'll say the two top fighters. They've got different styles, yeah? But how are those two going to separate them from each other? Let's say there's one guy watching, one guy with a bit of money that could sponsor one fighter from here, maybe give him $1,000 a month or something like that. How are they going to sell themselves differently to them? This is where fighting styles play a big play. People, the outside fans, I don't, because I'm a fighter and I know the technical aspects of it. But an outside fan do not like wrestling as much. They like wrestling when you get them on the ground and punch them, but when you wrestle to do jiu-jitsu, for outside view, maybe not as fun. I understand all of that because we're all fighters, but when you get people that have never done stuff before, they want to see violence, like I was saying, damage. So out of those 20 fighters on the UFC Fight Pass, someone's got to be different. If they want to get any sponsors on their next fights, they've got to be different. And because it's got such a big, wide audience on that Fight Pass, how many people are normally watching that on that? Would you say, I'm going to guess, is it like 30, 40, 50K, or is it way more? Or that given
Yeah,
time live?
it'll be around there. It depends really what else is on the Fight Pass, but then I believe the arena, BEC Arena, I feel as though this card should sell well based on the names that it's got. So even the
Yeah.
arena, if they're operating at 100% capacity, that's going to be 4,000 people watching in the
Like
venue.
in
And then
person,
on
in
Fight
person,
Pass,
there's going to be people that could potentially sponsor them, and especially online. And like when you're fighting in local shows, let's say Callum Connor, for example, he's not going to get a sponsor from America when he's fighting on shows that aren't broadcasting it to there. So when it's on Fight Pass, he now has an opportunity for people from America, people from Australia to see what he's like. And if they see one fight they like, they might not sponsor him straight away, but they'll follow him. And once you follow him and you've got them in, and they see your next fight, and your next fight, you're like, oh, sweet. Because of that opportunity I had on Fight Pass, I've now got a sponsor potentially paying me $2,000 a month because they believe in me and they like my style and they think I'm going to bring an audience in. Because with sponsors, you got two different sorts. You got people that sponsor you and people that support you. Sponsor pay you substantial amount that helps, I think, pay for your training. Supporters are just people that you train with, maybe when you first started, and giving you a couple £100 every month or so to help you out. But when you get to this sort of level, like McCracken that's fought in Bellator, Louis that's fought in PFL, when they're looking really for bigger sponsors that's going to help fund their lifestyle, and this is what this opportunity will help bring to them. It might even bring them as well big contracts on other shows, which then technically they might not need sponsors then, but it will help out. It'll help them to get there because I'm a big one on this, but like when you're at your bottom of your pro levels, this is where you need the sponsors. When you're at the UFC smashing it, you don't need any. You do not need any money to be able to live full time as a fighter because you're already getting it. But when you're down here at the bottom, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, you need it because some of these will be living on £500 a month. £500 a month for a fight. They'll be on the return and what they're paying to what they're getting back from the fight if an outside person looked from it and like a money thing, it's pointless. This is why I don't think you should fight for money whatsoever. You got to love what you do. So when you get sponsors at the top, it's nice to get them, but they don't need them then. They actually need it on the come up, maybe the 2 years before they got there. And this is where that's how you've got to make yourself different. You got to stand out from the crowd and market yourself, not just as a fighter, but as a business, your sole business. And it doesn't have to be politically correct or anything like that. Look at Diaz, for example. Since the McGregor fight, he's been marketing himself, just getting blazed and everything, and everyone loves it. So it's just different ways of doing it. And that's how you're going to create popularity. And with that, that's going to create opportunities for shows. Because I reckon McCracken's at the top and Lightning's at the top because they sell tickets pretty well. And they've been on good shows already and they fought good. On those shows, McCracken v that, whatever his name was, in Bellator, that was a sick fight. Louis Lightning on his last fight on Cage Deal, sick fight. The one before PFL sparks him out clean in about 20 seconds. People have been watching him. That's why those two at the top. Yes, obviously the records help, but it's because they're exciting to watch.
100%. And as well, in terms of sort of, you look at Lewis Lee Scott's fight as well. I believe Carlos Sabre, I believe, is a coach now mostly, but I think I could be getting it wrong. There could be two. I'm hoping there's not. But as well, recently the competition step up that he's had has been huge. And I know before even at PFL Europe, I know he called out one of the journalists for calling that into question before and questioning on his ability after he'd won his fight. But in terms of now, he's taken that big step up and he keeps proving that he can handle himself as well. Do you feel as though that this realistically, both for McCracken as well, it could really be one of the last few regional fights that they get? You'd think at this point that they'd be pretty much there or thereabouts. They're both on the big
Probably,
shows.
yeah. Like
PFL
McCracken's
Europe will want to bring him back as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, McCracken's, if it wins, it'd be 6-1. Lightning, it'd be 7-0. This is where you're going to be looking at stuff. This is where it's all dependent on fighters because my goal will not be the same as these two people's goals. Yeah, they could sign to Octagon probably. Octagon probably offered them. I don't know, but they've been offering quite a lot of people on the scene. But it depends if that's their goal. They might want to be like, nah, screw that. I'll get two or three more fights. I could be in the UFC. So it depends what route you want to take it. Yeah, they could probably get signed to a promotion and get decent money now. Or do they want to just hold back 2 fights against 2 decent opponents and then potentially be in the UFC? But like I said, I haven't said it already, but you never know when the call's going to come. So you can just trust in your abilities and trust the route you're going to go and your team you got behind you. Or you can do something that different show maybe that you think, oh, I'll just do that. I'll beat all these people up, knock them clean out, and then I'll go to another show. So it depends. Everyone's different. Everyone's journey is different. It's like if I drove to London. Yeah, we could all get to London, but we're all going to go a different route. The same thing in fighting. Everyone has their goals, but you'll get if me and Ada Kanya had exactly the same goals, exactly the same, the route's going to be way different, totally different. So that's the same with this. Depends what route you want to go with fighting. There's so many different options now. Promotions. It's not just UFC. There is Bellator. There is PFL. There is ONE. There's Octagon. There's I don't know what else there is. There's this one, but this one's helped probably for a builder show for other ones. So all depends what route they want to take. And yes, I know both of them are going to be looking for hard fights now. They don't want no easy ones. They don't want to be like McCracken and Louis. Don't want to be fighting no one with I don't know 2 wins, 4 losses. Because what's that going to do for them to get in the bigger shows? They want fights that probably match well with them stylistically, and they've got good records. Because then it makes them look better for the bigger shows. And not only that, well helps with your confidence of it, or like your momentum. If you know you're fighting a bum, it don't after it don't do it here. You know, like you don't feel it the same. When you know you fought a hard guy and you submitted him, or you've knocked him out, or you've beat him on a decision, or whatever, you feel it here and you feel it rise. Whereas when you fight a bum, you feel it here, maybe at the given time for 10 seconds, but you know that your level wasn't quite as good. Not even bums, people that may be a little bit lower, but you know that you could potentially get harder opponents. When you beat those harder opponents, that's what proper grows you as a man or a woman, depending obviously on the gender. But that's going to help you take take those bigger fights, and that's going to help you get the bigger opportunities. Really, the bigger fights will get you the bigger opportunities. Not always, but most common.
100%. And then as well, just a final thing, sort of wrap this up. Fights that you'll be looking out for that people should be watching, both from the pro or amateur card. Is there anything that sticks out to you that you think people need to be on the lookout for when it comes around?
So I say Coakley. I watched the highlights of him and Charlie, because Charlie's an old teammate. So I thought that was quite a good fight, to be fair. So I reckon from watching him there, I reckon that I want to see what he's probably about there. I know Dennis Tampon. Dennis Frimpong, yeah. I don't know if he used to train with him or he's good mates with him. He speaks very highly of him and his style. So that's probably on the amateur cards when I'm looking through. That's probably the one I'm most looking forward to see. On the pros, for me, obviously my boy, Mr. Callum Connor. But then, to be fair, there's a few. The top two, McCracken and Lightning, they'll be a good one. Like you said, be good to see them. There'll be maybe after this fight, there might be a big show on around the corner for them. So these are going to be big fights for them and moving it forward for their career. So those two will be a good one. Connor, Mr. Callum Connor. Yeah, I'd like to see Malachi. Obviously, how he gets on, what he's been working on in the gym. See how the new sort of training he's been implementing goes in the fights. So definitely with that. And I'd probably say those four for me. To be fair.
100%. And then I'll just add on a quick three myself. I think Conor Sean McKay versus Jayton Guy, that is a fight that
Go on, give me the reasons, Joey boy. Give me the reasons.
Give you the reasons. Obviously, Conor Sean McKay really burst onto the scene.
Hey, that reminds me, actually, isn't there some beef between McKay and Mr. Bolton?
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to do a prediction, yeah? I'm going to do a prediction. After one of the fights, one of them's going to call the other one out.
Oh, you never know. It could happen.
I think there might be a call out.
In the cage there and then.
I believe. I just remember that. I remember there's a little bit of beef, so I reckon there's going to be a little bit of a call out, maybe. Maybe. Don't hold me to it. Might be.
Potentially so, but no, it's a very big fight. Obviously, Conor Sean last fight beat Jimmy Sadiq. He took that next step up. He's been telling me since he was 1-0 with Shaved Head that they were the best in this country and the best in UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
And this is the fight for him to prove.
He loves it. He lives in the gym, like you said. He lives in the gym. Yeah. He's about it. He's about if someone lives in the gym to fight, they're about it.
100%.
Yeah, much respect to people that live in the gym and do stuff. It's not the easiest, but it sure does pay off.
100%. And then as well, we're flying. But in terms of sort of looking at the next fights, I would go with, could definitely go with Jack Dunleavy versus Kane Holmes. I think both of them good technical.
Yeah, I forgot about that one actually. Yeah, Kane Holmes fought, what's his name? Oh, you get brain fog. Oh, Joey boy.
He fought Daniel Ward last, I do believe.
What was the one before?
Testing me now as well. But
Edward, what's his surname's Edwards.
Harry Edwards.
Yeah, that's it. Harry Edwards. He fought Harry Edwards, didn't he? Quite a close one. I'll be honest, didn't watch it. I just know, seen it on a bit of socials.
Yeah, and then moving on into the pro scene as well. I'm trying not to let my camera die. It's on the brink of death, but I would say James Williams versus Danny Minihill missing. It was a fight that was meant to be on FCC. Didn't come to fruition, but I know for the UK people who like the regional scene, that'll be something they want to see. And then the top two fights as well.
Yeah, you agree with me, Joe boy, yes.
I'd have to hand it over to you. Tell the people about SL coaching as well. I know that's something you've recently started, so tell them about it.
All right. We've got two different things. Swaino Skills is totally MMA. That is techniques, stuff about fighting. I have some stuff under the cover. Don't worry, I'm grafting in the background whilst I'm injured. All will come to light probably at the end of the year. But we have stuff in the background going on that is going to be very big. SL Academy as well, newly branched out with me and Mr. Softhouse, Andrew Softhouse, known as, if you know him, Lofty. Yes, Lofty on. And that is all about transforming your lifestyle. That is general fitness. It is nothing to do, well, it can be if you want, but it's not really to do about fighting. It's not. We're not aiming for fighters. We're aiming for people that have struggled to get into a fitness routine and feel healthy and good about himself, really. So we're looking at people that wanting to help them lose weight, help to change their mindset with training. We're going to help with the nutrition plan. We're going to create the training plans. We're going to, most importantly, this is the main thing we're being on, our USP. We're going to be on your back, because there's nothing worse. You're paying for something, and then someone just gives you a plan nutrition. You be like, yeah, sweet. And they go, oh, I don't like porridge. You go, cool, whatever. Eat it anyway. You're on a diet. We're not looking at a diet. We're looking to change your lifestyle. We're looking at sustainability, sustainable lifestyle. That is what SL Academy is all about. So we're going to be on your back. If you've not done your steps like we told you to at 8 o'clock, we're going to be messaging saying, you got 2 hours left of the day. You got 2,000 steps left. Go on a walk. Go on a walk, Joey boy. Come on, mate. Do you want to? Because we look at their goals. We set them. We have worksheets, and they'll set goals every week, and we'll aim to get on their back about achieving those goals. Because once you achieve those goals, it'll compound up. So the main thing is, we just want to help people improve their lifestyle through fitness, your mindset with your accountability factor, and just not learning to eat crap, and just reward your body for what it needs, and just make yourself feel good about yourself. This is going to be for losing weight. It's going to be for gaining muscle. It might be for maintaining, but we're just looking at the general fitness population, and this is how we are going to bring SL Academy to the light of the world and bring it to the biggest platform we possibly can and help you out along the way. And obviously the main goal is to help you achieve your goals, and that is a SL Academy, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure, Joey boy.
Absolute pleasure as well. And then you've got another one of your sponsors, I believe, Maven Trading. I'll give them the mention as you sit the water.
Maven Trading. So if you don't already know, Maven Trading is a prop firming thing for crypto, forex, stocks, all that sort of stuff. And if you know anything about funded accounts, FTMO, we have smashed your ass. We are now above you in the Twitter leaderboard, and we've got more followers from you. And we only started, what we're in now, I think we're on nine months of it being opening, and you've been there for at least 6 years. So we're smashing you out the park. Good old Mavens. So if you're wanting a funded account is where you trade with someone else's money. So if you lose, you don't lose money. If you win, you get money. They do 200 grand accounts. So if you're making 10% of that 200 grand account, you're going to get, at the moment, I believe it's 80%. So you're going to get 16 grand of that. 16 grand when it's none of your money. Obviously, you got to pass some tests before, but it's a great way, if you know how to trade, or even if you don't, learning of trading with someone else's money, making money, and knowing that you're not going to lose any money. But Maven Trading is taking over the world of the prop fund priorities and companies, and we're already leading it from the get-go, from the pack. So it's the Mavens to the end. Come on! Come on!
There you go. So that is everything from myself. Obviously, the preview show of Dreams. You've got me and Stafford Swainston. You don't need another one now. If you see any others, don't watch them. They're not worth your time. This is the only one you needed. Appreciate your time today, buddy. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure. Hope you have a good night, pal.
You too, buddy.